Rose, explain this right. I swear I didn't touch the cake. How dare you poison my wedding? Search her, right now! Please, I didn't do this. I've never seen that before.
Take your hands off her.
Samuel, don't!
Samuel slowly lowered the fork onto the plate. Not a single person inside the ballroom dared to speak. 300 guests stood frozen, waiting for the billionaire to collapse. He didn't. Instead, Samuel calmly looked toward the family doctor. "Please check Lily." The doctor hurried across the ballroom, while Rose remained surrounded by 2 security guards. Michelle folded her arms, convinced the evidence against the maid was already impossible to escape. The family doctor knelt beside Lily and gently examined her. "Can you tell me exactly how you're feeling?" Lily looked at her mother before answering. "My tummy just feels funny." The doctor smiled gently. "Did you eat anything before the wedding?" Emily nodded. "She had some ice cream on the way here." The doctor nodded thoughtfully before continuing his examination. Samuel quietly watched every reaction inside the ballroom. Something didn't feel right. The room wasn't filled with fear. It was filled with expectation, as though someone had been waiting for this exact moment. Welcome to Hidden Narrative. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Now stay with us until the very end, because this story is just getting started. A few moments later, the doctor stood. His voice was calm. "She's stable." A wave of relief swept across the ballroom. "At the moment, I don't see any signs of a serious medical emergency. I'd still like to monitor her, but there's no reason for anyone to panic." The guests looked at one another in confusion. Michelle's confident smile faded for the first time that evening. "But," she said, "her stomach hurts." The doctor nodded politely. "Children can develop stomach discomfort for many reasons. At this point, I can't conclude it has anything to do with the cake." Samuel slowly turned toward Michelle. Then why was Rose accused before anyone even knew what was happening? The ballroom became silent again. Michelle hesitated. I only wanted to protect everyone." Rose finally found the courage to speak. "I've worked in this house for 6 years." Her voice trembled. "I would never do anything to hurt anyone here." Samuel looked at the tiny bottle resting inside the evidence bag. Then he looked back at Rose. He remembered every family dinner, every charity event, every Christmas celebration. Not once had Rose given him a reason to question her honesty. So why tonight? Why on the most important day of his life? Why would she suddenly risk everything? Samuel picked up the evidence bag without opening it. Nobody touches this until it's properly examined. Michelle immediately stepped forward. "Samuel, isn't it obvious?" He looked at her. "No." The single word echoed through the ballroom. "It isn't obvious." Michelle blinked. "The bottle was found in her apron." Samuel nodded. "Yes. But no one has explained how it got there." The room fell completely silent. Even the guests who had been recording lowered their phones. For the first time that evening, people stopped looking at Rose and started looking at Michelle. Samuel handed the evidence bag to the head of security. "Seal it." The guard nodded. "Yes, sir. No one opens it until it's tested by an independent laboratory." Michelle's expression hardened. "Samuel, why are you treating this like a criminal investigation? We found it in her apron." Samuel looked directly at her. "Because accusations don't prove guilt." The room fell silent once again. Rose felt tears gathering in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had spent 6 years serving the Hawthorne family with honesty. She wasn't about to beg for people to believe her. "I didn't put that bottle in my apron," she said quietly. "I don't even know what it is." One of the wedding guests suddenly spoke. "I saw a rose near the cake earlier." Several heads immediately turned. Another guest nodded. "So did I." Rose quickly answered. "Yes, because the pastry chef asked me to bring fresh serving plates." She pointed toward the kitchen. "I never touched the cake." Samuel looked at the pastry chef. "Is that true?" The middle-aged chef stepped forward immediately. "Yes, sir. I asked Rose to bring clean serving plates. She never handled the cake." A ripple of whispers spread across the ballroom. Michelle quickly interrupted. That doesn't prove anything. Samuel remained calm. No, but it proves she had a reason to be there. He turned back to the chef. Who actually prepared the cake after it arrived? The decorating team finished it, sir. After that, only my staff and I were allowed near it. Was Rose one of them? No, sir. Samuel slowly nodded. The timeline was beginning to change. If Rose had never been allowed to touch the cake, then someone had accused her before knowing whether she even had the opportunity. Samuel noticed something else. Michelle wasn't looking at Rose anymore. She kept glancing toward the ballroom entrance. Not once, not twice, 3 times, as if she was waiting for someone. Samuel had built billion-dollar companies by noticing the smallest details, and one habit had made him successful. Whenever someone became nervous, he never asked why. He watched what happened next. Just then, one of the security officers hurried into the ballroom. He leaned close to the head of security and whispered something into his ear. The man's expression changed instantly. He walked straight towards Samuel. Sir, what is it? We've just discovered something on the security cameras. Samuel's eyes narrowed. What did you find? The guard hesitated. It wasn't the cake. It was someone standing beside Rose's locker about 30 minutes before the ceremony. The ballroom exploded with whispers. Rose looked completely confused. My locker? The guard nodded. Yes. Samuel took one slow breath. Bring the footage. Across the ballroom, Michelle's fingers tightened around her bouquet for the first time that evening. Very slightly, almost too small for anyone to notice. A single bead of sweat rolled down the side of her face. She knew exactly what that footage might show. And if Samuel saw it, everything she had spent months planning could collapse in a matter of minutes. The ballroom doors were locked. No guest was allowed to leave. Within minutes, a large television screen was wheeled into the center of the ballroom as the head of security connected it to the mansion's surveillance system. More than 300 guests watched in complete silence. Samuel stood with his arms folded. Play it. The recording began. The timestamp read 5:42 p.m. The corridor leading to the staff lockers appeared on the screen. One by one, employees walked past. Housekeepers, waiters, florists. Everything looked perfectly ordinary. Then, a woman wearing a catering uniform appeared. She paused outside Rose's locker. Several guests leaned closer. The woman looked carefully down both ends of the hallway. Then she reached into her pocket. Rose frowned. I've never seen her before. The woman removed something small from her apron. Before anyone could clearly see what it was, the video suddenly froze. The screen turned black. A loud murmur swept through the ballroom. The head of security frowned. That's impossible. Samuel looked at him. What happened? The footage has been erased. What? Someone deleted the rest of the recording. The technician checked the system again. The file ends right here. Samuel's jaw tightened. Can deleted footage be recovered? The technician hesitated. Sometimes. But only if it wasn't professionally overwritten. Michelle immediately let out a relieved breath. So quietly that almost no one noticed. Almost. Samuel noticed. He said nothing. Instead, he simply watched her. Years of negotiating billion-dollar deals had taught him something priceless. People often revealed themselves when they believed they were safe. Just then, one of the younger security guards hurried into the ballroom. Sir, I've found the catering company manager. A middle-aged man stepped forward, looking confused. Samuel spoke calmly. Is the woman in this video one of your employees? The manager studied the frozen image for several seconds. Then his forehead creased. No, sir. Samuel's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? We never hired her. A ripple of shock spread through the guests. The manager continued. I know every member of my team. I've never seen this woman before. The ballroom erupted into whispers. If she wasn't with the caterers, then how did she get inside? And why was she wearing their uniform? Samuel's expression grew colder. This wasn't an accident. Someone had entered his estate pretending to be staff. Someone had approached Rose's locker. Someone had deleted the security footage. That meant one thing. The bottle inside Rose's apron hadn't appeared there by chance. It had been planted. Rose slowly covered her mouth. Fresh tears filled her eyes. You mean, I was set up? Samuel turned toward her. For the first time tonight. I believe that's exactly what happened. Across the ballroom, Michelle lowered her eyes. She knew the investigation had just taken a dangerous turn. But what no one else knew was that the mysterious woman in the catering uniform wasn't working alone. Someone inside the Hawthorne family had opened the security gate. given her temporary staff credentials, and helped erase the surveillance footage after the bottle had been planted. The real betrayal had come from inside the mansion itself, and Samuel was about to discover that the person he trusted most had been lying to him for far longer than anyone could imagine. Samuel didn't take his eyes off the frozen image. Find out how she entered this estate. The head of security nodded and immediately spoke into his earpiece. Rose stood silently, still trying to understand why someone would frame her. I don't have enemies, she whispered. I've never hurt anyone. Samuel looked at her. That's exactly why we're going to find out who wanted everyone to believe you did. Before anyone could speak again, another guard hurried into the ballroom carrying a small black tablet. Sir, we've checked every guest invitation, and there isn't a single name matching that woman's face. So she wasn't invited. No, sir. Then how did she get through 3 security checkpoints? Nobody had an answer. The Hawthorne estate was protected by one of the most advanced security systems in the city. Every vendor, every guest, every employee, every vehicle had to be approved before entering. For a stranger to walk in wearing a catering uniform, someone with high-level access had to approve it. Samuel's expression darkened. This wasn't just a setup. It was an inside job. The words sent another wave of whispers through the ballroom. Michelle forced herself to remain calm. Samuel, maybe we should postpone this investigation. He slowly turned to face her. Why? She hesitated. Our guests are frightened. We can deal with this tomorrow. Samuel shook his head. No. The person responsible is standing in this room. I'm not giving them the entire night to destroy more evidence. Michelle fell silent. At that moment, the head of security returned. Sir, we've recovered one more recording. Samuel looked up immediately. From where? The service corridor outside the staff entrance. Play it. The video appeared on the screen. The timestamp was just 20 minutes before the ceremony. The mysterious woman in the catering uniform walked quickly through the corridor. She wasn't alone. A man wearing a black suit and a security badge walked beside her. His face wasn't visible. Only the badge clipped to his jacket. The guests leaned closer. The man stopped outside a restricted access door. He swiped his security card. The door unlocked. He allowed the woman inside. Then both disappeared from the camera. Samuel paused the recording. Zoom in on the badge. The technician enlarged the image. The badge number became visible. The head of security's face changed instantly. I know that access code. Samuel looked at him. Whose badge is it? The guard swallowed hard. It belongs to one of our senior security supervisors. A stunned silence fell across the ballroom. The Hawthorne family's own security team had been compromised. Samuel's voice became ice cold. Bring him to me. One of the guards rushed out. Less than 2 minutes later, he returned. Alone. Sir, the supervisor is gone. Samuel frowned. What do you mean gone? His office is empty. His phone has been switched off. And according to the gate logs, the guard looked down at his report. He drove out of the estate 12 minutes ago. Samuel's jaw tightened. He ran. No innocent man runs. Now Samuel knew one thing for certain. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a carefully planned conspiracy. But one question still haunted him. Who had paid a trusted security supervisor to destroy the reputation of an innocent maid? On the very day of his wedding? Samuel slowly turned his eyes toward the guests. Some looked frightened. Some looked confused. But one person refused to meet his eyes. Michelle. She stared silently at the floor, clutching her bouquet so tightly that several white roses snapped in her hands. Samuel noticed. He didn't say a word. Not yet. Because he had learned long ago that the truth often revealed itself. Just before the liar believed they had escaped. Samuel watched Michelle for a long moment. She finally looked up. What? Samuel answered quietly. You're unusually eager to end this investigation. Michelle forced a smile. I'm worried about our guests. No, Samuel replied. You're worried about something else. Before Michelle could answer, the ballroom doors opened again. The head of security returned with a laptop. Sir, our IT team managed to recover part of the deleted footage. A ripple of excitement swept through the guests. Play it. The recovered video was grainy, with several missing seconds. The mysterious woman in the catering uniform appeared once more outside Rose's locker. This time, the recording continued just a little longer. The woman placed the small bottle inside Rose's apron pocket. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Rose covered her mouth. I told you. I told everyone I didn't do it. Several guests lowered their heads in embarrassment. Only minutes earlier, many of them had been convinced Rose was guilty. Now the evidence showed she had been framed. Samuel didn't celebrate. He kept watching. The mysterious woman closed Rose's locker, then turned toward someone standing just outside the camera's view. Only one hand appeared on the screen. A man's hand. He accepted the locker key from the woman before both disappeared. Samuel paused the video. Can you identify him? The technician shook his head. The camera doesn't capture his face. But he enlarged the image. You can clearly see his watch. The screen zoomed in. A silver watch with a deep blue dial filled the display. The ballroom became quiet. Samuel recognized it instantly. Only 12 of those watches had ever been made. They had been commissioned as gifts for Hawthorne Global's executive board 5 years earlier. Only senior executives owned one, which meant the man helping the mysterious woman wasn't an outsider. He was one of Samuel's own executives. The realization hit Samuel harder than any business betrayal he had ever experienced. This wasn't about Rose anymore. Someone had used his own company, his own security, and his own wedding to carry out a carefully planned attack. Just then, Samuel's longtime assistant hurried toward him. Sir, I found something you need to see. He handed Samuel a tablet. On the screen was a bank transfer made just 48 hours earlier. A payment of $500,000. The recipient's name had been hidden, but the sender's account was unmistakable. Samuel slowly lifted his eyes. It was an account belonging to Carter Holdings, Michelle's family company. For the first time all evening, Michelle's confidence disappeared completely. She stared at the tablet, then at Samuel. Samuel, it's not what it looks like. Samuel's voice was calm. Then tell me what it looks like. Michelle opened her mouth, but no words came out. Every guest in the ballroom watched in complete silence. For the first time since the accusation, Rose wasn't the one standing under suspicion. Michelle was. And Samuel realized the woman he had planned to marry in less than an hour may have been living a lie from the very day they met. Michelle stared at the tablet, her hands trembling. Samuel, please let me explain. You'll have your chance, Samuel replied calmly. But first, I want the truth. He turned to the head of security. Bring in every executive who received one of those watches. Within minutes, 11 executives stood at the front of the ballroom. Each one silently removed their watch and placed it on a nearby table. Samuel counted them. 1, 2, 3, 10, 11. He looked up. There should be 12. The head of security nodded. One is missing. Who? The guard looked down at his report. Gregory Vale. A murmur swept through the ballroom. Gregory wasn't just another executive. He was Samuel's chief financial officer, his most trusted advisor for nearly 8 years. Samuel's face remained expressionless. Where is Gregory? Nobody answered. A security officer spoke into his radio before looking back at Samuel. Sir, his car left the estate 15 minutes ago. He turned off his phone immediately afterward. Samuel closed his eyes for a brief moment. Gregory had run. That told him everything. Just then, Samuel's assistant stepped forward again. Sir, we searched Gregory's office. And we found this. He handed Samuel a thick brown envelope. Inside were property contracts, bank statements, and several confidential Hawthorne Global documents. At the very bottom was a signed agreement. Samuel's eyes narrowed. It wasn't a business contract. It was a prenuptial agreement. But it wasn't the one his lawyers had prepared. It was a forged copy. One additional page had been inserted. If Samuel became medically incapable of making financial decisions within 30 days of the wedding, Michelle would automatically receive temporary authority over several Hawthorne family investment accounts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. A stunned silence filled the ballroom. Samuel slowly looked up. So this was never about Rose. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. He turned another page. There it was. A payment schedule. Gregory Vale, the fake catering employee, the missing security supervisor. Every payment traced back to the same source. A private account secretly controlled by Michelle. Rose stood frozen. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Michelle suddenly burst into tears. I never wanted it to go this far. Samuel looked at her without emotion. Then how far did you intend for it to go? She couldn't answer. Instead, she lowered her head. I only wanted the wedding postponed. Samuel frowned. Why? Because Gregory told me the prenuptial agreement would never pass after the ceremony. He said if the wedding was delayed, we'd have more time. More time for what? Michelle whispered. To replace the documents. The guest gasped. Samuel let out a slow breath. So you destroyed the life of an innocent woman, just to steal my company. Michelle's tears streamed down her face. I thought nobody would investigate. I thought everyone would believe the maid. Rose slowly wiped away her own tears. Not because she was afraid anymore, but because someone had finally believed her. Samuel walked toward Rose. Every guest watched in silence. He stopped in front of her. Then, in front of 300 witnesses, he spoke the words Rose thought she would never hear. Rose. I'm sorry. The ballroom fell completely silent. I should have protected you the moment those accusations were made. I allowed you to stand here alone. And for that, I sincerely apologize. Rose couldn't hold back her tears any longer. She shook her head gently. You believed me when it mattered. Samuel smiled faintly. No, I believed the evidence. I should have believed your character first. At that moment, the sound of police sirens echoed outside the estate. The ballroom doors opened. Detectives walked in. The lead detective approached Samuel. We've just arrested Gregory Vale. He was trying to leave the city. And the missing security supervisor has also been taken into custody. The detective looked toward Michelle. Miss Carter, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, evidence tampering, and attempting to frame an innocent person. Michelle closed her eyes. Without another word, she quietly held out her hands as the handcuffs clicked into place. The guests stepped aside in silence as she was escorted out of the ballroom. No one defended her. No one followed her. Only the sound of her footsteps echoed through the hall. Samuel turned toward the guests. The wedding is over. But tonight has reminded me of something far more important than marriage. A person's reputation can be destroyed in a single moment. And it takes courage to stand beside someone before the truth is known. He looked at Rose. Thank you for never giving up. The guests slowly began to applaud. One by one, the applause grew louder. Not for a billionaire. Not for a wedding. But for an ordinary maid whose honesty had survived the biggest lie of her life. The grand ballroom of Hawthorne Estate looked completely different. The wedding decorations were gone. The music had faded. The headlines had disappeared. But one decision Samuel made that night continued to surprise everyone. Rose Mercer returned to work. Not because she had to, but because Samuel personally asked her to. One morning, he invited her into his office. Rose stood nervously at the door. You wanted to see me, sir? Samuel smiled. I did. He slid a small folder across the desk. I've spent the last 3 months thinking about everything that happened. Rose looked at the folder, but didn't open it. I've realized something. For 6 years, you've protected this family. You've protected this home. And on the worst day of your life, you still chose honesty. Rose lowered her eyes. I was only doing my job. Samuel shook his head. No, you were doing what many people with far more power failed to do. You kept your integrity. He nodded toward the folder. Open it. Rose slowly lifted the cover. Inside was a new employment contract. Her eyes widened. Director of Household Operations. The position had never existed before. Samuel had created it especially for her. Along with it came a generous salary, full benefits, and ownership of a beautiful home just a few minutes from the estate. Rose looked up in disbelief. I don't know what to say. Samuel smiled warmly. You've already said enough. Your actions spoke for you. Tears filled Rose's eyes. For the first time in months. They were tears of joy. Across the city, Gregory Vale pleaded guilty to conspiracy, fraud, evidence tampering, and corporate theft. The former security supervisor was convicted for accepting bribes and helping destroy surveillance evidence. As for Michelle Carter, she lost far more than her freedom. Every business partnership connected to her family collapsed. Her reputation, built over years, disappeared almost overnight. People didn't remember her as the woman who almost married a billionaire. They remembered her as the woman who tried to destroy an innocent person's life for money. Samuel eventually canceled every celebration connected to the wedding. Instead, he quietly donated the untouched food and flowers to local shelters, hospitals, and community organizations. He never spoke publicly about what had happened. He didn't need to. The truth had already spoken for itself. And as for Rose, every morning when she walked through the gates of Hawthorne Estate, she no longer lowered her head. She walked in with quiet confidence. Not because she had been given a promotion, but because she had earned something far more valuable. The respect of everyone who knew her. Sometimes, The strongest people aren't the ones with the most money or the loudest voices. They're the ones who refuse to abandon the truth, even when the whole world believes the lie. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. Now we'd love to hear from you. If you had been in Samuel's position, would you have trusted Rose from the beginning, or would you have believed the evidence against her? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We genuinely enjoy reading your comments, and your opinions often inspire future stories here on Favored Narrative. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves unforgettable storytelling. Until next time, thank you for watching Favored Narrative.